Good day. Today we are going to look at the education of children in the early childhood stage. And basically, what it entails is the same thing essentially with what it takes to educate a toddler. So I'll be referring you to my video on toddler education and skill acquisition in order to get the basic details of how to educate a child in the early childhood stages. They are basically the same. However, there's an aspect of the education of the child in the early childhood stage that we must dwell on. Now, educating a child is something that molds the mind of a child. And whatever molds the mind of a child determines their mentality. Whatever determines a child's mentality determines what their personality will be. Whatever determines a child's personality determines their reality. And by extension, by association, that also determines your reality because you are their parent. Imagine, if you will, a child who is in a school and they are giving masturbation as a homework. They are asked to go and masturbate at home as homework and then come to school the next day and give details on their experiences. Imagine, if you will, a child where in the sex education class they are being introduced to same-sex relationships. They are being introduced to transgender issues, and they are being told that lesbianism is normal and acceptable, or they are being told that doing chores for their parents is something that they can refuse if they don't want to do it. As long as their parents are not paying them, it is child labor and they have the right to sue their parents. Imagine, if you will, your child is in a school and then an Islamic school, for instance, and then the topic for the day is jihad, for instance. Jihad, from the little I know of what the word means, is a good topic. It has a lot to do with self sacrifice and giving. But imagine, if you will, if that teacher taking that topic is a radicalist. The child could very easily turn from philanthropy to terrorism. Now, this is an aspect we need to deal with, aspect of the educational process of the child that was not treated in the previous chapter that I was referring to, that we need to deal with. How do you take control of what your child is being taught so that you can determine that what they are being taught is for their usefulness? It will help them, it will help the family, it will help you who are the parent, because your children are your retirement plan. They are the people who will take care of you in your old age. They are the people who will take care of generations to come. They are the future of the society. Imagine, if you will, if somebody you are expecting to give you grandchildren is saying that they are a lesbian and so they are not going to get married and they cannot have children. Because they were taught in school that these things are normal. Now, there are schools that are teaching these things, not in this part of the world, but it doesn't mean that we should take for granted all these things, because they are going to affect how your child comes up. They are to affect their mentality, and then their personality, and then their reality, and then your reality. And so we must watch out for it. In this part of the world, there was a school I worked in once. The teacher was reported as teaching the children religious ideologies that were, well, let me use the word, not kosher. So how do you take control? You need to take control of what your children are being taught. Luckily for us, in this part of the world, there are no laws against. I hear that in some parts of the world there are laws against teachers knowing what their children are being taught in school. asking what their teachers are being taught in school. But thank God in this part of the world, it is not so. So we must take control, we must be involved in what our children are being taught. So that as they are growing up and their minds are being shaped, their personalities are being shaped, their realities are unfolding, and your reality is unfolding, you will be able to make sure that their education, the education you are paying for, is not going to be a problem for the entire family in the future. So I made a list of as to how parents can be involved in their children's education. I titled that list Parental Involvement in Early Childhood Education. The first thing of in that list is you need to know what your child is being taught. You need to know what your child is being taught in school. Many parents are satisfied to say, I paid so much money, I'm paying 120,000 for school fees, let them take care of my children. But school is not all about mathematics and English. And even inside mathematics, there may be things that are being taught to your child that may not help the family. So what you do in this case, how to know what your child is being taught, you should have copies of your children's scheme of work. They can be bought from the Ministry of Education, they can be bought from the schools where your children are attending, or in some cases where the copyright laws are not affected, they can be photocopied and you have your own copy to go through at home. You should know what your child is being taught every week, every topic, the content, the objectives of that topic. It will help you to know. Like if, for example, you decide that the particular topic is not for your child, you have the right to keep your child away from school that week. For instance, if I was in such a country where sex education involves teaching children masturbation, and I discovered that by looking at their scheme of work, even if I cannot correct the school, I can keep my child at home when that topic is being taught. In this part of the world, we are also free to approach the school authority and let them know any topic in that scheme of work that doesn't go well with you. And by discussing, I'm sure we can find a common ground. But you must begin by having copies of the scheme of work in your home, and you must have time to go through them. You must find time to go through them. All of your children's textbooks you should be familiar with what is contained in them. There was a friend of mine from outside the country sent me pictures of what was contained in 9-year-old children textbooks, and it was horrifying. It was terrible. A lot of things that children of 9-year-old should not be seeing were in that textbook, and so you should know what are in your child's textbooks. Peradventure, you are not educated, and you may not be able to understand how to navigate a scheme of work. It behoves you to get someone, probably most likely a teacher who's close to you, who can interpret these things for you, even if it means you paying for the service. Because the life of a child, the future of a child is essentially your own future. And so how much you spend making sure they get the right tools to go into life with should not be an issue. So even their exercise books, their notes, you should go through them, not just to be sure that they are learning, but to be able to make sure that what is being taught is something that will benefit them and something that will not be detrimental to them. A lot of people send their children outside the country and for the expensive education they feel they are getting the best, but the content they do not know. So if you are a parent, you have your children in school, you need to find out what they are learning and be sure that it is not against what you would have them learn. It was not just getting this scheme of work is not just to find fault alone. Sometimes it may help you to know how you can assist the school in teaching your children. For instance, if they have sex education, I think primary 5, second term has a topic that has to do with reproduction. Every term you have a child in that class, you should be able to know that okay, week 7 is reproduction, which involves sex education in the basic science. Now, knowing that can help you to prepare, and that same week they are being taught, you can also give them your own lectures at home and find out if what they are teaching them in school is not at dissonance with what you are teaching them at home. These are the pains a parent need to go through to make sure that your child grows up the way you want them to and not the way a stranger wants them to grow up. And that's the first point under what to do to make sure your children get the kind of education, quality of education you want. The next thing on the list is that you should study with your child as often as you can study with your child. It's better if you don't get someone to do it. It's better one of the parents who is freer should always be doing homework with the children. Make sure you are with them while doing homework, you are with them while studying to see exactly what it is that are in their notes and help them as well. It will also give you pointers as to what to discuss with the teacher. For example, your child is not doing well in an area, you will be able to pick that up during homework sessions. Um, Thirdly, discuss school events with them and give your opinions as to how they can be modified to better your child. When there are events in the school, like beauty pageants, competitions, debates, discuss these things with your children, prepare them as is necessary, and also discuss with the school ways to make them benefit your child. Because the reason the school exists is because of your child. So every suggestion you give to the school should be taken seriously because it's because of your child that the school exists. So discuss school events, events that will not help your child, pointless events, immoral events. Um, there's a country where I heard they were having gender familiarization events that involved half-naked homosexuals coming to educate children on gender freedom. Those things are not going to help children. They are not the reason why children are in school. And if such events were to come up, being involved would entail you letting the school know your feelings about such things. Um, the next on the list, always attend school functions. Always attend school functions. Never take them for granted. Never be too busy for your future. Many people do not have time for their children. It's unfortunate. But the truth is, not having time for your children is the same thing as not having time for your future because they are your future. They are your retirement plan when you are too old to take care of yourself. They are the ones that are going to take care of you. Now, if you don't train them properly, there's going to be some issues. Part of training them involves being at PTA meetings to make sure that decisions that are taken at PTA meetings are those that favor you. Be at school recitals, be at debates, be present. Your presence helps to give the child also confidence. Um, Always be at school functions. Always make time for school functions. Don't delegate that. Be there yourself to see, to hear, and to be involved. If you have a lot of time, you could even still be involved in the preparation of these school functions. The last on the list is encourage the school to develop volunteer programs. Now, there are some schools in some parts of the world where there are volunteer programs where parents volunteer to teach. It doesn't matter whether the parent is educated, it doesn't matter whether the parent is um, knowledgeable, but there are programs where parents are allowed to teach. If you are a tailor, even if you cannot speak English, even if you can speak the local dialect or pidgin, you just choose a class, come to the class, and just teach the children. It enables the parents to know what teaching is about. It helps them to respect teachers more, and it also helps the children to be comfortable in their education, knowing that their parents are part of it. You know, they are in some schools, like in the US, there are days where parents go to school to speak to the children on their professions, teach the children what it means to be a tailor, what it means to be an engineer. Those are what I'm calling volunteer programs where parents can be in school to teach. These things can be discussed at PTA meetings where schools can be encouraged to do this. It can be done at any time, and it helps children to be more grounded in the educational system. It helps the school to also be aware that parents are ready to be involved, and it affects decision making, it affects curriculum design, it affects curriculum delivery, and it behoves all parents to encourage it. So we're going to be stopping here. In our next video, we may be entering the teenage stage of upbringing. It's a very exciting chapter, parenting the teenager. Teenagers are a very, very, very special group. It's the last stage before a child becomes an adult. And in our next chapter, we are going to be discussing about teenagers and how to parent them. A lot of experts call the teenage stage the stage of storms and stress. And rightly so, because storms and stress for everybody, for the teenager, for the parents, for their friends, the teachers. So we need a lot of skills to know how to train the teenager, how to parent the teenager productively. Until then, thank you.